This week on Previews World Weekly, we see what San Diego looks like without a convention, weigh in on the best and worst comic book endings, and round up some of the best 100th issue comic book covers. Strap in for our giant-sized 100th episode of Previews World Weekly, all happening right now.
What's up, Previews World? It's Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day, which means it's time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm your other host, Ashton Greenwood, a.k.a. the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day, and we are squarely in the third week of Free Comic Book Summer.
And we're also on the 100th episode of Previews World Weekly. I know, right? That's kind of crazy. We started this about 2 years ago. And it has evolved in various ways. The final stage, actually, the most recent stage, is Troy in a hotel room. So we went from a studio to Troy's house to Troy in a hotel room. No, I'm on a mini vacation right now. So, but at the same time, 100 episodes, that's kind of crazy, right?
That's ridiculous. I didn't realize it had been 2 years. I feel like that went so fast.
It did, and I can honestly attest to that it did go by very fast. And I think when you don't have to, when you're just running and gunning week in and week out, basically we do the show on Wednesday and then it's off to the next show. I'm spending Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday until we have our production meeting on Tuesday, trying to figure out what's going to go in the show, what we're going to talk about. And so, it just kind of just flies by. It just all becomes a blur. So congratulations to us to making 200 episodes, and I thank you everybody out there who's been hanging with us for all this time. DJ Young, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Big Brad, thank you too as well. I appreciate it as well. And actually, speaking of finding topics to talk about this week, Ashton, first up, there's a new catalog out this week at your local comic shop. During the COVID-19 hysteria, whatever you want to call it, that we are really still in, there was a lull with the previous catalog, and then last month it made a triumphant return. And this month we are back with another issue, which means it's going to be a monthly thing from now on. And so, this month on the back cover is a new Fantastic Four book by Dan Slott and R.B. Silva, who's a phenomenal artist. And then on the reverse side, we have a cover from Alternation, which is featuring the toys from the Alternation line. But also there's a comic book coming. Or a comic project coming from Dark Horse featuring the Alternation characters. And of course, there's 500 pages plus of just amazing material in there every single month. And we hopefully will be having a few interviews with some of the creators behind some of the items featured in the catalog in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to give you guys a little bit more. But of course, go to previewsworld.com/catalog if you can't get a hold of a catalog today. And if you can get a hold of a catalog, if your store is open, if they're not dealing with whatever social distancing situation they have to deal with, go to your local comic book store and pick up a copy of the catalog. Me personally, I like flipping through the catalog more than anything. So, but Ashton, that's enough about what I saw this week. Ashton, what do you want to tell us about the Rise of Skywalker? What's happening in the Rise of... The movie came out a year ago, but it seems like we always have news about the Rise of Skywalker thanks to Ashton. So what's going on in the world of Rise of Skywalker?
Man. My role in this show is for Troy to spend 4 days putting together an outline for me on Tuesday to start adding ridiculous stuff to it.
But I think I love that. I love that about the opening of the show. We just jump in head first. So,
so Rise of Skywalker, there is a report, take it with a grain of salt, I'll say, that Marvel will not be releasing their Rise of Skywalker adaptation anymore. They were set to adapt the book into comic books and kind of try to highlight some of the scenes that were left on the cutting room floor and extend on some things and really highlight the stuff that didn't make it into the film. And it was on their schedule, but then when the shutdown happened back in April, it hasn't found its way back onto the schedule yet, despite the fact that Marvel has rescheduled most of the other books that were slotted for that time. So rumor has it it's a no-go.
Yeah. And I think, comic book adaptations of movies are a weird animal to me. On some level, I understand the novelization of a film because you kind of get all this more, you get this you get more of the main character's internal struggle, and like, you know, sometimes you get stuff that's actually not it didn't make the final cut, like you said. But I've always kind of felt like comic book adaptations are a weird animal. But this one in particular, I actually would have been very curious about, because we already know from the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker that there's certain elements that were completely removed from the last film, like huge chunks of the movie.
Right.
Yeah. And like I know you can talk more about this than I can, but like it would have been interesting to see if that made the final version of the comic or not, but I don't know.
I would have been interested to know like how much, because like with the novelization, like the novelization of Rise of Skywalker left a lot of people very angry.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see if they would try and walk some of that back then again with the comic book, because that would be an opportunity. Marvel and Disney and Lucasfilm are in this weird gridlock where they do a thing, fans are mad, they try to do another thing to make the fans happy, but it inevitably blows up in their face. So they're always in this circle of like trying to crowd please, and it never works.
Right. Sure. No, that's fair. That's fair. It's it's like kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. It is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Like I know you have strong feelings about this, but I've kind of softened.
I have many.
I've softened a little bit on my hot takes on Star Wars. At this point, I kind of just feel bad for Lucasfilm, because I kind of feel like it's a lose-lose situation no matter what they do.
One time you said to me, Troy, you were like, Star Wars fans are the worst. They're so opinionated. And at first I was like, I think I'm offended. But then later I was like, is this justification for me to be mad about everything? I think it is.
Oh, so you've just been using it ever since.
Yes.
You've been embracing the dark side, Ashton. Have you learned nothing from these movies?
I know. So much more power.
Yeah, I'm in a weird space. I feel a little bad for the Star Wars, the fans, and I also kind of feel bad for the creatives behind Lucasfilm right now, because they're kind of been boxed into a corner, and like, you know, it's I almost feel like it's almost harder. It's easy to say just listen to the fans, but I mean, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Especially now, there's too many opinions. Like I think like when Force Awakens came out, this is a total tirade, but like when Force Awakens came out, they cut every trailer for the film to make you kind of feel like, oh, Finn is the lead. Or if like seriously, if you watched BET, you thought Finn was going to be the lead of the movie. If you watched Telemundo or any of the like Spanish speaking channels, you thought Poe was going to be the lead of the film. Like, you know, if you looked at the internet, you thought Rey was going to be the lead of the film. And I think it's kind of created this kind of divisiveness that maybe definitely is kind of their own making about like where the franchise should go. And now it seems like it's not going in any of those directions. So yeah, it's just a weird place. It's just a weird spot to be in. So I have a little bit of sympathy.
It was dangerous. It's always going to be dangerous to try to tell a Star Wars story within the Skywalker saga of that, because people are too connected to Luke, and they feel like they're owed certain things, and you're never going to be able to achieve that. And that's kind of been like, that's why Clone Wars was as popular as it was, and why Mandalorian did as well as it did, because you kind of get away from Luke and get into areas where there aren't as many expectations.
I ended up watching the gallery episode of the Mandalorian, or I guess it was the Mandalorian episode of the gallery, which kind of gave you all this. Well, it was actually really cool because like it actually, and we'll get to Mandalorian in a second, but like it was actually really interesting because you really got a perspective on how all the different directors, you have like Taika Waititi, you have Bryce Dallas Howard, you have Jon Favreau, you have all these creators who are coming together to direct different aspects of the series. And one of the things I thought was really interesting that I thought really kind of nailed what made the series so successful with fans and critics was just like their attitude is that, no, we owe it to the fans to do it this way. You know what I mean? And so I think that maybe that's the guiding light for the Star Wars franchise, actually. I don't know. And I think that something can be said for providing some fan service. Brad Gibson says, the Star Wars comics are my only regular modern comic buy. The rest I buy are old reprints. I've heard a lot of good things about the Star Wars comic. I've only read the the first couple issues of the Jason Aaron book, and I read the Princess Leia book, which I actually surprised the hell out of me because I love that. So I recently purchased the Kieran Gillen Darth Vader. I'm going to read it, and we're going to see what all this is about. Especially very curious about how they introduce Dr. Aphra into the franchise. So, but actually, speaking of Mandalorian, on a similar topic, guess who swept at the Emmys? Well, they didn't win just yet, but they got a ridiculous amount of Emmy nominations, Ash. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so they received 15 Emmy nominations, and probably the most exciting one there is they were nominated in that Best Drama category. And then, as Star Wars usually does, tons of nominations for like technical, sound mixing, costuming, all of those things that they usually get nominated for. But it's kind of like unheard of for something like this to get those kinds of nominations. And of course, there was already a lot of griping in the greater film critic community about this fandom and Star Wars and Baby Yoda. And I say, put a sock in it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't like whatever. I mean, first of all, the Emmys are kind of divvied up weird, like oddly. Like there's best comedy and best drama, and there's no in between, which I've always thought was kind of weird. So then you get like these movies that shouldn't be in the comedy category getting nominated for a comedy, and movies that shouldn't be in the drama category necessarily. But I mean, it is a dramatic interpretation of the Star Wars universe. Like I think that that's totally fair, and I think given the amount of turmoil that's gone on within just making something for the Star Wars fans and the fact that this was successful, it deserves a nomination for that. Like by itself. So yeah, big news. What is it? Johnny's telling me Matt Damon's The Martian was classified as a comedy. Yeah, exactly, which is weird to me.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. But I mean, it's kind of a funny movie, but it's also very much a drama. So
serious, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Meanwhile, speaking of big news this week, of course, San Diego Comic-Con at home happened to replace San Diego Comic-Con in San Diego, right? And there's some announcements here. I kind of feel like this wasn't the biggest SDCC event that you could possibly could have encountered. Like I kind of feel like there were some announcements and that was kind of interesting. But I found the most interesting part about this was people taking pictures in San Diego of the convention center, in and around the convention center, because you've done the SDCC. We've both done it together. We both hit this convention like more than, I would say, at least twice in the last couple of years. And so you really get an understanding when you go there that the entire city becomes like a pocket for like this event. Like the entire city kind of like gravitates like around San Diego Comic-Con. And so for there not to be an event that year was kind of weird. And so this Twitter user, Chris Morrow, who I also think is a reporter for CNN, she took a bunch of pictures of just the convention center, what people are doing. Some people showed up with their bags. I guess they got for 2020 San Diego Comic-Con that, didn't happen. There's a hilarious memorial like in front of the convention, in front of one of the locations near the convention center as well, which I thought was hilarious. And then there was also Johnny had it up earlier, a socially distanced cosplay photo opportunity as well. That one right there, which I thought was pretty interesting. So people did show up, and yeah, it kind of makes me wonder what the hotel rates were like. I wonder if they were like really cheap that weekend. Actually, that's kind of interesting. Maybe should have
they were.
Maybe should have just gone to San Diego just to go to San Diego.
Just for funsies.
Just for funsies. What else you got, Ash? And I think you had one other thing that you want to toss out there. What was it? I thought. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding. Brad Gibbs says, I enjoyed the Bill and Ted panel from SDCC. Actually, I'm curious about that. I want to check that out. I also have not watched the Charlize Theron panel, which I want to watch.
I wanted to catch that too.
Absolutely. Was there something else, or am I missing, or am I completely like?
Oh, the Captain Marvel thing.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
My hair. So there's a rumor going around that the new Captain Marvel. Thanks for your support, George. There's a rumor going around that the new Captain Marvel movie is gonna. Well, okay. So first of all, it's not slated to come out until 2022. So this could totally change between now and then, especially with most production halted. But rumor has it that the new Captain Marvel movie will function kind of as like a mini Avengers movie in the same way Captain America Civil War did, that it'll feature like a bunch of different heroes, and it'll actually be the big screen debut for Mrs. Marvel, who's supposed to have a Disney Plus show. So that could be exciting.
That could be interesting. Yeah. Like, I don't know how they're going to work that in. Like, I kind of feel, me personally, that they barely established Carol as a person to start introducing Miss Marvel, but they probably aren't even going to go in the direction that the comics would. Who knows? Like, it's very interesting that I guess now that all the characters have been into like deeper parts of space and have fought space titans, that like, yeah, the idea of Captain Marvel having a bunch of existing characters go into space with her, maybe potentially, is pretty interesting. I was kind of hoping that they would continue on with this idea that she's kind of like having adventures in the past, you know. Like,
Oh, that'd be cool.
how the last movie was in the 90s, and like, so yeah, she, like, the movie ended with her basically attempting to kind of bring peace to the Skrull and the Kree, and their conflict in the universe. So hopefully that doesn't get pushed aside just to make a soft Avengers movie. I was actually really intrigued by that idea. But anyway, how about we talk about some comics right now?
I'm down. Let's do it.
Does that make sense to you? Guys, we're about to jump into What's the Comic Shops. But before we do that, I want to remind you, jump into the live chat. Let us know what you're reading this week, what you're picking up this week, new or old, because I got some old ones that I'm reading this week as well, in addition to stuff that's being released this week. But hey, let's do this. What's at comic shops? All right, so it's New Comic Book Day at your local comic shop, of course. And Ashton, what is on your must-buy list this week?
So I'm looking at Interview with the Vixen from Scholastic. So it's licensed, of course, through Archie, but it is a Scholastic book. And it's actually kind of cool because last year for Free Comic Book Day, Archie kind of did like a teaser inside their Free Comic Book Day book, giving a look at this new line of like Archie licensed Scholastic books. So this is one of the first ones to come out. So this is kind of like a soft take, or maybe a new take, if you will, on the Vampironica concept. So Veronica gets bitten by a vampire, and so, well, hold on, let me back up a little bit. There's a vampire wreaking havoc on Riverdale, going around turning their most affluent, most influential citizens into vampires and kind of collecting them into a cult. So the idea is that once you get bitten by this vampire, turned by this vampire, you're kind of one of his minions, and you can't leave. You're under his control. So Veronica gets bitten, somehow manages to escape this like minionship, and she seeks out her friends and kind of explains to them what has happened, and they all team up to try and work together to reverse these effects, which is basically like they have to kill this vampire in order to undo its effects on everybody, including Veronica, her parents, and anybody else that's been affected by it. So the cool thing about this particular book, or I think the thing that works well with this book, is it's a nice in-between for Riverdale fans or like fans of the show that maybe want to get into comics or want to kind of make that transition naturally, because this plays into some of those darker elements that Riverdale harps on without being as all in as like Vampironica is, or Jughead the Hunger, or some of those other titles. So I think it's a good entry point for Riverdale fans, and then it creates kind of that soft transition into like actual comics. This is a prose book. I should have pointed that out earlier.
Right, yeah.
And one of the other things I think is cool is it's got Dilton Doily in it, which I love Dilton. He's so dorky, and he's really important in the comics. Like, he shows up a lot, and he's actually like a really important character in terms of like keeping the narrative on track. But they killed him in like the second season of Riverdale. He's been long gone.
Oh,
but
really?
He's so cute and dorky.
You know, like, it used to be that Dylan was like the gateway to like all the otherworldly weirdo stuff that could happen in Archie. Like, without Dilton, is it Dilton or Dylan? I can't remember now. Dilton, okay. Without Dilton, you know, there wasn't like, you know, a time travel Jughead Space Police, or there wasn't going to be Veronica as a vampire, that sort of thing. At least that's how it used to work. So I kind of like the idea of him being the the Nick Fury of the Archie universe.
Right?
I think that's actually pretty neat. Actually, I kind of appreciate that. So it's not related to the so it's not directly related to Vampironica.
No.
Okay,
it just
interesting.
like takes that same concept and does it in a bit of a softer way.
Okay, interesting.
It's a Scholastic title, so it needs to be a little more accessible than those Archie horror books usually are. Like Blossom 666 is like, they really went all the way for it with that book.
It looked like they were kicking the brakes off on that one. Actually, I actually want to read that as well. Yeah, no, that's actually pretty neat. I'm actually softly invested in the Archie horror line. So yeah, I'm going to jump in, and hopefully we'll get to do a panel episode soon about one of the Archie horror books. Fingers crossed. Like, you know, we were doing this. Yeah, I know, right? I actually want to do that too because I want that gateway to be completely open for me. Because yeah, we used to do a show called The Panel, and then coronavirus hit, and then we stopped doing it. But
Thanks.
thank God for thank God for video live stream. We might be able to make that happen again in the near future. My pick this week, big surprise, big shocker, right?
X-Men?
It's it's X-Men number 10. But here's the
Crazy.
thing. I mean, seriously though, like there hasn't been an X-Men proper book for like several months now. So I've been waiting like crazy for this book to come out. And this is going to be an Empire crossover event. At least that's what it's saying on the 10,
Hmm.
on the front cover. But when we left off last time, there was like this storyline involving a brood egg. That had ended up on Krakoa, and then they ended up going into space. And so I'm hoping that kind of segues into this a little bit, because I have not fully invested into Empire. Like I'll be honest,
Hmm.
I'm trade waiting on Empire. It's got a
Didn't
great
it
creative
just
team.
start though?
It just started. Like it's like two issues in. Actually, I think this week will be the third issue because it's coming out every single week.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay.
but yeah, so I'm hoping that we're not abandoning that brood story to tell this Empire story. But regardless, you know what? I need it. Give me my X-Men.
Right. Love
Like,
that.
X-Men Fantastic Four came out last week and that was great. And like, yeah, now we get some just straight up Hickman X-Men. They also had the giant size book with Magneto, which was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I'm just happy to delve into this world that Jonathan Hickman's
Mhm.
recreating, and watching him just kind of play with all the toys. And actually, I need to watch his interview from San Diego Comic-Con at home too, because I'm curious about what he had to say, about his X-Men run. So I was going to say something, but it might be a spoiler that I just heard online, so I'm not going to say it.
Oh yeah.
Um, Ashton, can you tell us a little bit about Free Comic Book Summer this week? What's going on in the world of Free Comic
Yes.
Book Summer?
So we are in our third week of Free Comic Book Summer. We got 6 new titles: Archie, Stranger Things, Minecraft, Batman. The DC book is a flip book, so that's 2 stories: Batman, Once Upon a Crime, and Batman Overdrive. The Boys, #1, if you want to get on that ship, because Dear Becky just came out.
Mm-hmm.
Monster Showcase from Richard Fairgray, who also does Blastosaurus, if you like that. And then Stepping Stones and Max in the Midnight is a sampler for 2 of their upcoming graphic novels from Random House.
There you go.
So I just want to point out, because this is a problem we seem to run into on repeat. Contact your local comic shop before you head out. So the cool thing about Free Comic Book Summer is it's formatted in a way that comic shops can customize it and figure out what works for them and their customers. So not every shop will start giving out the comics today. Some might only be giving out 1 today, 1 tomorrow. So like 1 a day. They might be hanging on to them until the weekend when they have more foot traffic. So make sure you ask them when you can get those free books, if that's what you're going for, so you don't like waste your time, so to speak.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And like, actually, you beat me to it, because I was about to say, because I see the same messages and DMs you see where people are like, my comic shop's not doing. It's like, well, make sure that they're carrying the books, but also make sure that they're not designating a specific day, which is what you just said. But yeah.
Right.
So big ticket items this week. X Factor #1, which I'm actually interested to read more about. They so the X-Men books right now are doing this thing where the X-Men have discovered a way to resurrect themselves and from the dead. We saw like in one of the previous, the early Hickman books, that like the X-Men, some of the core X-Men members went on a bit of on a mission that went disastrously, and they ended up dying one issue. Sorry, spoiler alert from like last issue. But then they ended up resurrecting them the very next issue. So I think that this book is actually going to just tap into that a little bit more, give us some more details on that. And actually, it's by Leah Williams, who's becoming quickly a fan favorite of a lot of people. And I have never really given her writing a chance. And it just so happens she's writing one of my favorite X books, X Factor. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Also this week, I have to repeat this again, August Previews has dropped this week, guys. So definitely grab your copy. Definitely see what's coming out for the month of October. As always, the Previews catalog is everything that's dropping 2 months in advance. So this is how you pre-order at your local comic shop. So definitely check that out. For all you gamers out there, this Cuphead Volume 1. I know nothing about Cuphead. I just know that it's a video game. So
Right.
And the animations look a lot like Steamboat Willie, which is actually pretty impressive. But yeah, definitely check it out. If you're into Cuphead, that's definitely something you should do. For all you brown coats out there, Firefly #18 is dropping from Boom Studios. So yes, I like, people always talk about how Firefly was unceremoniously canceled, right? But the series continues on, not just in your hearts, but also at Boom Studios and every month at your local comic shop. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Annual, which I think is going to be a nice little self-contained story. So definitely check that out. It's from Tom Waltz, who's definitely a fan favorite. Lost Soldiers from Image Comics is also dropping this week, which is Alice Cott, I believe, who's also another a fan favorite writer. He does like a lot of weird, trippy stuff, I've been told. He did a couple of spy books not too long ago. So, you know what, maybe I'll finally dive in and check out some of his work. Oh, look at this. Surprise. There's a Wonder Woman book out this week.
Why is that a surprise?
Well, because it's a DC book. And I think it's an original title. It's actually a Wonder Woman Come Back to Me from Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti. I think this is an original. I don't think this is a reprint. So that's definitely dropping this week from your local comic shop. And of course, DC books are available every single month, every single week. Soul Eater Volume 1, Perfect Edition, something for you manga kids. This is, of course, a re-release of the Soul Eater series, and they're calling it the Perfect Edition because this is the one that's going to be for the hardcore fans. And on that note, I did mention that the August previews is out this week. It just so happens we have a trailer for Life is Strange, which is actually featured in the August preview. So we're going to go ahead and show you that trailer, and I'll give you a little bit more detail about it. Check it out.
Come on, little one, show your face. Don't be shy to say hello. When you leave me in the darkness, without a whisper in my ear. Come on over, let me hold you in my arms. I wanna spend some time with you. I wanna spend some time with you.
And so that is a box set for the Life is Strange series. That's from Titan Comics, and Titan's been releasing a bunch of Life is Strange miniseries over the last, I want to say last 2 years or so. I don't know if you're familiar with this comic book at all. I mean, this video game at all, Ashton, but it is a video game. I actually happened to walk in on my roommate playing it, and I was like, "What is this depressing game that you're playing?" Like, it's
Right.
so
I was watching this trailer and I was like, I think I'm sad now.
right. It's very angsty, and like I couldn't even begin to describe the plot for you. But yeah, it's not a shooter. It's not a beat 'em up. It ain't Halo, guys. So so just Life is Strange. It's like this interesting. I think it's like a point and click character drama type thing. Like I'm a horrible person. I don't know anything about it. But if you do know about Life is Strange and you love the Life is Strange series, then definitely pick it up and definitely pre-order at your local comic shop. And that's in the previews catalog right now. Johnny, let's touch on some comments from viewers. What's everybody reading right now? Spiderman Rises, Sin Eater. Okay, cool, nice. Thank you, Anton.
Solid.
Anton, one of our regulars. I'm reading Umbrella Academy Dallas before I watch the show this weekend. That's right. There's a new season about to drop. That's right. What else we got? Brad Gibson. I'm reading my Dr. Afra trade paperbacks. Okay, and my epic collections of Spider-Man and Captain America, as well as the Saga collection of Usagi Yojimbo and Carl Barks, Donald Duck, and Uncle Scrooge. See, I like Brad. Brad reads like I read. Like I'm reading like 5 different things at all times. Like I'm never like reading one thing. And then oddly enough, I can only watch like one TV show at a time. So I don't know what that's about, but cool. Oh, and Archie Married Life. Oh, and Archie Married Life is awesome. Which actually I read that.
Yeah.
I actually like Archie's Married Life. I actually thought it was a cool like little Elseworld. And Brad also says Life is Strange. It looks like a great series. Well, hey, definitely check it out. Definitely pre-order from your local comic shop. Speaking of Life is Strange, well, speaking of trailers, I should say, I did want to point out that I apparently New Mutants is still a thing. I know.
Allegedly.
Like, I mean, I know the running gag is this movie's never going to come out, but Disney/Fox released a trailer right during San Diego Comic-Con with the absolute confidence Like, you know what I mean? Like they
Maybe
dropped it.
misguided confidence.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this anymore. Like I've kind of gone from being like completely disinterested in this movie to like the buildup for this movie has been so like out of control that like now I'm kind of like I kind of want it to be good.
Oh, but what if it's not?
I mean, it's a very strong possibility it's not, but I mean, I don't. I mean, it's also also there's the other issue of like, look, it comes out and then Marvel's going to end up doing something completely different for the mutants in their once they integrate them into the MCU. But I mean, it's an interesting concept. It's got Laura Braga, who I think she plays Queen of the South, which I love that show. And it's also got Macy Williams from Game of Thrones. I mean, it's an interesting concept. It takes place, I think, in the 80s. They're definitely doing a horror angle with it specifically. I mean, you know, for years I've been saying that the X-Men movies need to focus on somebody else besides Wolverine. And here we're finally getting that, and I think that's actually interesting. Allegedly. But we'll see how it works out. Maybe. Hopefully it's good. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Like, are you looking forward to New Mutants? Or are you just here for a train wreck? Or are you actually hopeful that it's actually going to pan out? Brad Gibson, back again. I watched the New Mutants panel at CCC. It does look good. It's interesting. I'll give you that. Like, I'm curious about it. Like, I'm not really giving my stamp of approval just yet, but I'm morbidly curious about it. How about that? How about that?
I think that's fair.
Yeah. So, Ashton, I'm going to kick it over to you because it's time for Social Swamp. You got what it takes, Ashton?
Always.
All right, let's do it. Social Swamp time.
Okay, so this week we asked you guys to tell us what are the best and worst comic book endings you've experienced. And I think this came from a hashtag trending at some point in time, and Troy's like, let's do this. So we're doing it. Here are your hottest takes, and boy, they are hot. John Roche says, the final panel of the final page of Amazing Spider-Man number 122. Conway, Kane, Romita, no words, one sound effect, foundation laid for decades. Masterful example of what comics can do and movies can't.
No, actually, I know exactly what he's talking about. Like, that's the issue that right after Gwen Stacy died and Mary Jane decides to, instead of telling Peter to kick rocks for the millionth time, she decides to stick around, and that sets the motions for their entire relationship moving forward, which is actually was a really nicely done and very subtle too. So I'll give him that. That was actually really well done.
Thomas Slinka says, worst comic ending, The Unstoppable Wasp, both volumes 1 and 2, written by Jeremy Whitley, simply because it ended. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
He got me there for a second. I was like, this is aggressive. Like, he even told the creator. And then he goes on to say, best comic ending, The Unstoppable Wasp, both volumes 1 and 2, because no other comic series has ever made me cry twice.
Okay. Oh, twice. Valid. All right. Respect.
Bruce Dunham says, worst ending, The Clone Saga. After so much time, we deserved better. ASM 128, why every week? Death of Gwen Stacy is the best.
Okay, nice.
Jim Crawford says, the ending of Watchmen messed me up. It was days later before I realized it was a perfect example of art imitating life.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've definitely had those before where you're reading something, you're like, this is absurd. Like, you know, you're just like, this is such a stretch. Like this would, and then something happens in the real world and you're like, oh my God, this is,
damn it.
Oh my God.
And then you have to go back and like revisit the whole thing mentally and like figure out where you went wrong. Right.
But also, like, you know, you start to sit there and you're like, you know, there's I'll just real quick. There's an issue of I think it's New X-Men 114, 115, something like that, that shows as the August issue. It's August 2001 that the issue comes out, and so you probably have an idea where I'm going with this. And it shows an airplane flying into a citadel that kills Magneto, and then the next page is basically like all these people running for their lives from this, like, you know, this tower falling. Well, then the next month is September 2001, September 11th. And like that always weirded me out. It's the strangest thing. I'm pretty certain I got the year right. I'm pretty sure it's August 2001 when that book came out. And then the next month was September 11th. Like it's the strangest
Oh
thing.
my
I'm sorry.
God.
I just wanted to point that out real
Ooh.
quick because like I don't think enough people have brought that up. But I'm sorry. What
Yeah.
else? What else we got in the social swamp category? Sorry.
Will Berkovitz says Batman: The Long Halloween has a terrible ending, and that showed up more than once actually.
It did. Yeah, it did.
It was awesome until the end. Who is Holiday? Is it Alberto Falcone? Harvey Dent? Gilda Dent? A murder mystery should not be this confusing.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people co-sign that, and like it's interesting because people prop up the Long Halloween so well. When people start talking about oh great Batman stories, a lot of times, especially from Hollywood, you'll hear the Long Halloween a lot. But yeah, I actually kind of like Dark Victory more because it's a Robin origin story. It's a little bit more straightforward. But yeah, I definitely came out of that with the same mentality, which is like, so who is Holiday?
Oh, yikes.
Anyway, is that the last one, Johnny? Sorry, I like totally derailed the conversation. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, Ashton, what about you? What is your best ending and/or worst ending?
So it's actually funny that someone brought up Archie Married Life earlier, and I don't think this is a bad ending, but to me, I feel like it was a little bit of a Jip ending. Like he should have either picked Betty or Veronica, and I get what they're trying to play into, like the fact that it is a comic book, and the multiverse is like a popular theme, and they could do that, and and I get it, but to me, it felt like a Jip. Like you gotta pick a lane. And
pick a memory lane, huh? See, I know my Archie. I know some Archie. Come on now.
All right, respect.
Sorry.
Worth it. Totally worth it.
What were you about to say?
In terms of best ending, I loved the way The Walking Dead ended.
I
thought it was first of all, if you haven't read it, I'm sorry, I'm gonna spoil it for you. I thought it was very appropriate the way Rick died. Like the fact of the matter is, one, like Rick has to die at some point. He's not immortal. So at this point in the story and at this point in the journey, like he couldn't die any other way than at the hands of somebody that had a personal gripe with him. Like it wouldn't make sense for him to die by a stranger, by a zombie, anything like that. So I felt he got, although, it's upsetting that he died, I felt like he got the most justifiable ending for his character.
Interesting.
And then when Michonne and Carl are going to leave to go bury him, and literally everybody in Alexandria wants to come because he had impacted everybody so greatly. And there's just this lengthy trail of everybody going out to send Rick off, like hit me right in the heart. I loved the way it ended. Was it sad? Did it suck? Yeah, but it was a great ending. Like you can't act like things don't end because they have to.
Yeah, no, I love that. Actually, I didn't even know that about the Walking Dead ending because I never really followed that book that closely. But I think we've talked about this before in regards to Star Wars. But I think like in general, like the only you kind of sign this unspoken contract with the audience does with the creator, which is that you're leading us down a path. You know how it's going to end. And we are going to enjoy it. Like, and that doesn't, when we say enjoy it, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a happy ending. It just feels right to us as a viewer or a reader. You know what I mean? And I think that's why the reaction to things like Rise of Skywalker or even Game of Thrones, like, is so like intense. It's because people feel like you cheated us of that moment. You know what I mean? It's not an easy thing to do at all. I'm not saying it is, but at the same time, I think that's part of that, like, unspoken contract that we have. And so for that reason, you know what? I'm not going to talk about the worst. Oh, wait a minute. Brad Gibson's back in here. I just muted Ashton because of her Walking Dead ending spoiler. Well, Brad,
fair.
You can come back. You can come back now, Brad. You can come back. It's okay. It's safe. Spoiler's over with.
I'm glad I said that I was going to spoil it and didn't just like launch into this whole thing about it.
Right. I mean, look, it came out. This was this year the book ended, right? Didn't the book end this year? Or was
No,
it
it ended last year because
it was last year,
was at San Diego ComicCon, like signing copies of it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And we all got those free exclusive copies, which was cool.
Awesome.
Right. Thank you, Brad. Okay, it's safe. You're safe now. You're safe now. We're talking about Walking Dead anymore. Yeah. No, I like. All right. So real quick, something happened this weekend that kind of pissed me off. I'm going to be honest with you.
The cancel culture thing.
It is.
All right, let it rip, because you had so many feelings about this.
I had some very strong feelings about that, and like it's the Tom King J. Lee thing. I'm not going to dive into it too much, but it just underlined to me. I'm just saying this because it underlined to me that, you know what, the nerd outrage just gets so out of control sometimes that, you know
Mhm.
what, I'm not even going to give you my worst ending. I'm just going to give you the best two. How about that?
All right. Okay.
I'm going to try to be, I want to be positive. I want to talk about the best of comics and not like the worst of comics, you know? So best ending. I've mentioned this before. Ultimates 2. Like, I actually think Ultimates 2 is better than Ultimates 1. And there's been a rumor that, like, I don't know if it's true, so take it with a grain of salt, that Mark Miller got some help writing that book from Grant Morrison. So that's two of my favorite writers writing essentially an Avengers book. Um, and like, yeah, the payoff for it was just so epic and so fantastic.
Mhm.
And like, I think it was made even better by the fact that if you're reading it in real time, the Ultimates 2, you had to wait for an obscene amount of time for the last issue. Like, I think it took like almost 2 years for that final issue to actually drop.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but the finale was so epic. I mean, probably more epic than, like, I would say it's epic on the scale that at least is comparable to the Avengers movies, the last like 4 Avengers films. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it was that grand. And I might even argue that maybe it's not even like, the movies have still yet to live up to that level of grandiose
Right.
epic finale that Ultimates 2 had. But yeah, it was just such a great book. And like, this concept of like the Avengers just kind of being like, Thor says he's a god, but why do
Right.
we believe him? You know what I mean? And how that,
Valid.
right? And that entire thing unravels this whole like paranoia throughout the entire team.
Mhm.
That, of course, look, the book came out 20 years ago. I'm gonna spoil it. But of
Right.
course, it turns out that Loki's been throwing them for a loop the whole time, which is perfect because when you're reading
Oh,
the book, you're sitting there and you're like, wait a minute, are they really going to tell us that Thor's not really Thor? You know what I mean? Because it's the
right.
Ultimates. It's not regular Avengers continuity, the regular Marvel continuity. And then you just get this knockdown, drag out fight on the Washington steps, the steps of the Washington Monument between the Avengers
Yeah.
and like these invaders. And it's just and Loki and his invaders. And it's just so good and so brutal. Um, Another great ending. Ultimates 2 is great. You're damn right, Brad. It
Mhm.
is. um, Another great ending that I will jump in here and say is actually the ending to All Star Superman. Which, for those of you who don't know about All Star Superman, if you don't like Superman, you should read All Star Superman because I think the book characterizes why the character is so lovable, such a great character,
Mhm.
and what people see in him and why people gravitate to him. And the story basically
Mhm.
deals with Superman. Look, Superman's powered by the Earth's sun, right? And so he does a thing that causes him to get extreme exposure to the sun, and he ends up getting
Mhm.
basically cancer. And so he finds out that he's going to die. And so it's basically Superman just checking off all the things that he needs to do before he dies. And the book ends, again, spoilers. The book ends with Superman dying. It ends with Superman dying. You see
That's
him getting
crazy.
thinner and thinner as the story goes along. But the final image in the book, I almost don't want to spoil it because it's so good. I won't spoil it. But the final image in the book just kind of makes you believe, like, in Superman. And it
Mhm.
also just, like, kind of gives you this warm feeling inside.
Mhm.
And for those of you who know what the ending is, that is not a pun. But yeah, I just like it. It's just a really powerful statement on why, not just Superman, but why we love these characters and what they
Mhm.
provide for us as an audience. You know what I mean? So there you go. Ashton, I know that you want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about Avatar. So you
Oh,
wanna
I
you
do.
wanna let this rip real quick? Speaking of best worst endings.
I do. First of all, Avatar has one of the best endings ever to exist ever. Prince Zuko's redemption arc is the gold standard for redemption
Nice.
arcs. You cannot change my mind.
I love it. I love it.
It has a great ending. Everything is perfect. Aang lives up to his moral standards. He doesn't compromise his morals for everybody else's agenda. Zuko gets the battle he wants with his sister, but Katara gets to be a hero she always wanted, and same for Sokka. Everybody's
Mm,
story gets wrapped up
hmm
so nicely.
hmm
But the stories do continue after the fact. There's a handful of comics floating around that continues everybody's story. Zuko is the Fire Lord, Aang is the Avatar, and so on and so forth. And so somebody that hasn't gotten their own story yet in the comics is Toph. But that is now changing. Dark Horse is releasing Toph Beifong's Metal Bending Academy.
Nice.
You sounded like you had something you wanted to say. But basically,
No, no.
just to
Go
give
ahead.
this like the quick rundown, it takes place, after the war has ended. Toph has gone back to her home in the Earth Kingdom. She's opened her metal bending academy since she's the only Earthbender alive that can metal bend, so she's passing that knowledge along. But she kind of starts to feel like things are getting a little dull after spending pretty much a year on the road with all of her friends. But then, of course, Sokka and Suki show up, and it is not dull. If you know anything about Sokka, it's going to be a train wreck.
There you go. There you go. And so I don't know. I might have misread this, but is this the first like direct continuation from the cartoon? I feel like that's how they were billing this. Dark Horse is.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that as well. I was reading this listed on PREVIEWSworld, and it sounded like that's what they were saying, but I know there's a handful of comics before that, like, particularly deal with, like, Zuko finding his mother because she had gotten banished under Ozai's rule. So I'm not sure, like, where that leaves the other Avatar comics in terms of being canon or not. I'm a little confused there.
Interesting. Okay, well, I mean, hey, definitely find out. Definitely check it out. Like this coming from Dark Horse, and I'm not sure, but I think that might actually be in this month's catalog. So there you know, another pre-order opportunity. So. I just want to reiterate again, it's our big 100th episode. Like, we've been doing this for 100 freaking episodes. Like, that is ridiculous. And that's a big milestone. And, comic books in general love milestones. And so I just wanted to kind of throw up a few other 100 issue milestones on the screen here. Johnny compiled a few images here, and I just wanted to kind of like point to them just real quick because, just like us as a kid, these were a good chance to jump on, and hopefully you're enjoying this jumping on point with us. And if you are, and this is your first episode of the show, like and subscribe because, this is kind of what we do every week, and just like those big milestone issues like this amazing Spider-Man right here. Johnny, you can keep going through them all. Oh, yeah, that's right. Just like these big milestone issues.
Oh, come on, Troy. I actually want to talk about them.
Oh, you want me to actually talk about them? Okay,
well,
sure.
Heck, I'll talk about them because I'm going to compile these. So the thing I like about Amazing Spider-Man 100 is that this is like Peter Parker tries to actually, you know what? Let me do this. Like, hi, everyone. Producer Johnny here, by the way.
It's Johnny.
Hey, I make these crazy guys look good. So, but Amazing Spider-Man 100, this is Peter Parker tries to take a serum where he's trying to rob himself of his powers and trying to be a normal person.
Right, yeah.
And this is actually what caused Peter to have to grow the 4 extra arms and turn him into a real Spider-Man.
Yeah.
X-Men 100. So this was the episode where Jean Grey died and actually set it up for her to return as the Phoenix.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. Because issue 101 was the first one where she actually appears as the Phoenix.
And this is officially the old team versus the new team because the new team popped up in '95 and Giant Size X-Men before this. So 5 issues of the new team, and then the old X-Men roll up and they're like, "What is this?"
I mean, if I remember correctly, spoilers. I mean, it's an old comic, but I think the old team was actually just like robots or something.
That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah. It's the old Dave Cockrum books. Yeah.
But let's see. We also have Defenders 100, which also has like a similar line. And I pointed this out to you in like the pre-show meeting. Is that look at the X-Men 100. Professor X with his hands in the air. Defenders 100. Doctor Strange with his hands in the air. So
I love that they underline the 100 though. Like I think that's kind of what's missing from the X-Men cover, and like I think they really leaned into it nicely on the Defenders cover. Also, shout out to is it Damian? Is it Damian Millstorm? Who apparently has a Hulu show coming up soon. He's in that little mix on the Defenders cover right there.
So you also have Avengers 100. Which I just love this cover because it's just got,
that's a great cover.
Yeah, it's just all the Avengers coming out. Iron Man 1. Anytime you can actually incorporate the issue number into like the cover, for those monumental issues, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Here's one of my favorite 100th issues was The Walking Dead. I remember when this came out. I love this cover so much because like it's just all the bodies of all the people who have like died throughout the comic. Like even like I don't know exactly where it is, but like Rick's baby is even in there from the comic.
Oh whoa.
I think right in the bottom left, I think there's a tiny little hand there sticking out, which is like sad.
Jeez, but, that's a great cover. Actually, I don't never seen that one before. Actually,
I think this was the main. There was like 15 or so different variants for this, but this is my favorite, and I have this. That was also the issue that Glenn.
He took the bat to the head.
Yeah.
No.
I am not going to show the actual image from that. So, as you pointed out to me, 100 bullets, number 100, which actually, closed the curtain on the main protagonist in that issue.
Yeah, that was actually pretty epic because, like, yeah, the book is called 100 Bullets, and you know, if you know anything about the premise, this guy basically shows up at your doorstep and he's like, "You've been wronged. I want to allow you to seek revenge. Here's 100 bullets. They're untraceable. Do what you will with them, and I'm just going to turn my back." And like, it ends up being part of this larger conspiracy, but like, the fact that they promised early on that issue 100 was going to be the last issue just made it even more suspenseful to read. So yeah, and a great finish too.
I think we have something here that says, "Deep Brad Gibson, no spoilers for Walking Dead."
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Brad.
I'm sorry,
bud.
Brad. It's been out for a while, so
Right. The series is over, Brad. No, I'm just kidding.
Archie, World of Archie, you know, special 100th issue just came out last week or 2 weeks ago.
Just last week, yeah.
So that, and then there was also, I remember buying this at the comic shop.
Yeah.
Wolverine, the 100th issue. This is after Wolverine had his adamantium ripped out of him by Magneto, which I was surprised. Like, that happened, I think, in 1993. It was like X-Men number 25, and it was really after reading it, I was like, it really took this long for Magneto to do that.
Yeah, like, right. Well, I mean, it was like he would threaten to do it like every single issue, and then like every time they would encounter each other, and then like finally he just did it, and it was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, but this is where like there was a villain, I think his name was Genesis, and they tried putting the adamantium back into Wolverine, and it goes horribly wrong, and we ended up with this.
Oh, that's right. It's like kind of Cro-Magnon Wolverine that we got for a few years there, or like it was like maybe a year or two.
But that is just a couple of our favorite, or it's my favorite, top 100th issue comic. So Producer Johnny, resume your show.
The perks of being the producer, you can just take over at any time.
Anytime I want.
Anytime I want, you just jump in there. No, I think comics love milestones, so I think it's very fitting that that we have a 100th episode, and like I said, jumping on points are usually what these anniversary milestone issues are usually about. So yeah, if you're joining us for the first time, you like what you see, all right, definitely be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and just join us every Wednesday at 4 p.m., 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, 1 p.m. Pacific for Previews World Weekly. So one last thing we do before we walk out of here, we have our weekly poll. Ashton, you lobbed up something that I feel like there's got to be some backstory here for why you did this poll. What was it?
So I was going through, I was trying to find like kind of new and like fun ways to promote the different Free Comic Book Summer titles that weren't just here's the cover, here's what it's about. Like, I wanted it to be more engaging. And I knew that the Archie book was coming out this week. So I was like, well, I got to do something about Archie. And then I was reminiscing on like how much of a hot mess this poor man is. And I was like, well, is there anybody else in Free Comic Book Summer that could rival Archie and his chaotic energy? And I was scrolling and I was scrolling and I was scrolling and I saw the Tick.
Yes, I love it.
So I asked everybody whose chaotic energy they could relate to more between our lovable Archie and our ridiculous Tick. And the Tick won in a landslide.
And you blamed me for that, actually. I want to point that out.
Okay, because, well, on Twitter, it was like reasonably, like the Tick was winning. I'm not going to say like he wasn't. Like the Tick was winning, but it was a lot closer on Twitter until you shared it on Previews World and said, obviously the Tick. And then the Tick's votes went up like crazy.
I swayed the audience entirely. I always think it's interesting too, because like, you know, we always say that like Free Comic Book Day is like the newer readers, the people who are like, you know, who aren't coming in every single Wednesday, and Previews World Weekly is that audience. You know what I mean? So I actually think that you might have a valid point there that like here comes, you know, every like newer audiences definitely are very familiar with ours. You know, older audiences are too, but at the same time, I feel like the Tick is like one of those deep pulls that if you're a comic book fan from like back in the day, you're going to jump in there and try to probably vote for the Tick. So my bad. Hello from England. What's up, John Gaylor? How's it going, man?
England.
Thank you, England.
Shout out from America.
Right. Shout out to England. Yeah. Hello from America. Hello from America. And we also had one more poll that we didn't quite get to do last week because our show kind of like
exploded.
It crapped the bed last week. But like, can you throw it up? Can you throw it up on the screen real quick, Johnny? All right. So okay, Grimace versus Kool-Aid Man. Ashton, get it out of your system. What do you need to say about this?
I love Grimace. I think he is an adorable chicken nugget, and you can't change my mind about that.
Okay.
However, Kool-Aid Man is to relate this back to the first poll, Kool-Aid Man is the pinnacle of chaotic energy the ultimate train wreck.
Well, he's hopped up on sugar, so yeah, of course he is.
Yeah, he just like barges through your wall, not even like any appropriate entrance. He makes his own damn entrance, demands that you consume his internal being, and then exits.
Demands that you consume his internal being. You know what? I like that. I like this idea that like, yeah, just like it's like there's some weird sacrificial process that the Kool-Aid Man is going through every time he busts through a wall.
All Grimace does is he just wants to steal your milkshake.
Yes, there you go. He just wants to steal your milkshakes. Shakes.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's the thing with Grimace. If this was evil Grimace, if this was like 1970s, first time Grimace got introduced into McDonald Land, he had 4 arms, he was out to steal your milkshakes, this would be a very close match. Like, Grimace with 4 arms has got something to say about it. Grimace with 2 arms does not.
Does not, apparently. Well, apparently he learned his lesson from stealing. Like, you know, in some countries they chop your hand off, and I guess that's how he lost. That's how he lost his other 2 arms. And so now he's just mellowed out ever since then, which is probably good for him. You know, I appreciate. I support the reform, the Grimace being reformed.
How do you feel about it?
You know what? I don't have an opinion at all.
How is that possible?
You know, I was actually going to say this last week, and I didn't get a chance to. We're retiring this debate. No more Grimace and Kool-Aid Man. We're not even going to echo the words. We're not even going to say the words Grimace or Kool-Aid Man ever again after this. Like, you know, I'm banning Grimace and Kool-Aid Man from the show.
I can agree with that. Unfortunately, I can agree with that.
Okay. So there you go. You've had your fill. Enough of that. Anyway. All right. Time for Comic Shop shout out. And typically we pull a Comic Shop shout out from our viewers, our followers online who have like just want to shout out their local comic shop. But this week I actually wanted to go ahead and like pin one particular comic shop. This is a shop in El Centro, California, and it's called MetaHumans. And they actually, I can't talk about this now. So I actually got to be an Eisner Awards judge this past month, and so MetaHumans was one of the contestants. One of the final people, one of the final stores that was in the voting process. They did not win, unfortunately, but their story and like how they came about was actually pretty. Look, it was kind of touching, actually. Like they actually have embedded themselves in the community, and the community has really fully embraced them. And the more when you see this video, which I'm going to post later in sometime next week, you'll kind of see that like it looks like the community needed this. You know, and it's not a huge store, it's a small store, but there's like a lot of passion that comes from the people the people involved. And I just want to go ahead and spotlight them. So they're going to close us out this week on the show for Comic Shop Shout Out. And then hopefully next week, I could go ahead and show you their Eisner video. And I'll put up an article as well on our website, PREVIEWSworld.com, where I get to interview one of the people who works at the owner and one of the employees at MetaHuman, so you get a better idea of like, you know, just the type of shop that they are. So yes, just shout out to them, shout out to the El Centro community, and that's our comic shop shout out for this week. So definitely just stick around for that during the credits. And that's a 59-minute show.
Wow, that's a lot.
I'd say, you know, that's not 100 minutes, but that's a 59 minutes. So I'm going to say this is a giant size episode officially.
I think we've nailed it.
I think we nailed it. So, hey guys, thanks for joining us. Come back next week for PREVIEWSworld Weekly. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm Ashton Greenwood.
And we'll see you guys at their spinner rack. Catch you later.
Wahoo!